This is Lauren Becker interviewing James Caruso on the Korean War. What was America like during the Korean War?
Well, from what I've read, it was the early part of the 1950s. We were very worried about communism taking over most of the world, and even communists infiltrating the United States and working in our government. And it was a very tense time. The big war, World War II, was just over, and we thought we'd have peace for a while, but obviously that didn't happen. And we entered what was to be called the Cold War. Well, actual fighting did take place, even though most of the time it was just tension, but there were spots of fighting. And so one of those places was Korea. I think it was 1950 that fighting started in Korea. I wasn't born until 51, so I wasn't alive when the Korean War actually started.
What was the media like?
The media?
Mm-hmm.
The media was probably different than it was today. There wasn't as much of it, number one, and the competition for stories, even though it was still competition, isn't like it is today. Some were more conservative and followed whatever the government said. Others, of course, did more in investigating and probably were more liberal. And so it was like it is today in somewhat, but I think the media was trusted a lot more back then than it is now.
How did the Korean War begin?
The Korean War began when forces of North Korea, the communist part of Korea, crossed the 38th parallel and invaded South Korea, and the United States, through the United Nations actually, came to aid South Korea, and that started that police action, it was called back then, that we call Korean War now.
How did it end?
It ended with an armistice truce being signed in 54, I believe it was, after months, years of negotiating. Ended up pretty much the way it was before the war started. North Korea is above the 38th parallel, and South Korea is below the 30th parallel, and there's a demilitarized zone in between that separates the two countries.
Who besides United States, North and South Korea, who else was involved?
The communist Chinese were involved. At the beginning they supplied weapons, but later, of course, they invaded. They helped North Korea by supplying troops. The United States was aided by its allies, Britain, Australia, also helped out. Turks were there, Greeks. So it was a multinational force helping the South, made up of United Nations troops, and Russia, Soviet Union back then, Soviet Union, China were helping the North Koreans.
Why was this so important to the United States?
Well, the United States at that time believed they had to stop the spread of communism. We had theories like the domino theory that if one nation fell, then the next nation fell, then the next nation. How when you push one domino, if you line them up, if you push one, then they all topple. Well, we had that theory that if we let one nation become communist, it'll spread to the next, and spread to the next, and spread to the next, and we had to stand somewhere and stop that. And Korea was one of those places where we were going to stop that. Another part, of course, is we had diplomatic relations with South Korea and promised to help them. And we also had the Truman Doctrine. President Truman said he'd help any country who were fighting communists because we didn't believe that's what we were supposed to do.
How did this affect the United States citizens and their families?
It affected a lot of families because a lot of people lost their lives and were injured and captured by North Koreans. Well, we had just had a war 5 years before it ended, and now some of those same people were being recalled to fight in the new war, the Korean War. So, it was like there was upheaval in the family during the Second World War. Then things were just starting to get back to normal, and then there was upheaval again during this Korean War. So kind of like a double shot, you know. So it was, for a lot of families, it was a very upsetting time.
Thank you.
Thank you.